Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Higher or Lower, brought to you by oddschecker, Sporting Index and Spreadex. This is the show where we look ahead to the weekend's football and the Premier League. This weekend, no championship, sadly, and see the midpoint with the spread betting markets and see if we think the result will be higher or lower. I'm your host, George Ellick. I'm joined by Dan Worth, and oh my God, that's not Jack Wright. That's Sam Tighe. How you doing, Sam?
He's grown a big beard.
Yeah, bringing the average age of this show down by a full, I reckon, I'm not going to say.
10.
Wow!
Yeah, 10.
That would have been 30. The average, wouldn't it? Is there three of us?
Higher or lower than 30?
Between the three of us?
Lower. Between what, Jack to you? I mean, that is. I hope you're not watching. It's going to make him even iller. Yeah, Jack Wright, sadly unwell, maybe a bout of promotion fever, given Norwich's 10 goals in the last week or so. But yeah, Sam, a very capable stand-in who had to message me yesterday, just making sure they understood the spread betting markets correctly.
It's been a while.
How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Been better with the news this week on my club.
A very, very sad state of affairs at Reading, made even worse by the imminent departure of manager Ruben Sellers.
Yeah, exactly. Just another sad day as a Reading fan. We're used to it now.
Yes. On that note, let's talk about the first game of the weekend. We are ignoring Burnley hosting Middlesbrough on Friday night for some bizarre reason. Probably the game of the weekend, I'd have thought. But 12:30 kickoff on Saturday is the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park, which is going to be quite an event. Everton obviously fresh and buoyant after a resounding midweek victory. Liverpool went to Newcastle, were behind, then were ahead, and then drew 3-3 in a topsy-turvy game. But we're looking at bookings here. Bookings in a Merseyside derby you think would be pretty high, but 50 is the midpoint. So as we know with bookings markets, it's 10 points for a yellow card, 25 points for a red. If it hits 50 exactly, so if there's just 5 yellow cards, then this will be a push either way. So higher, you're looking for 6 yellows or more. Of course, reds go into that. Fewer or lower, 4 yellows or fewer. 3, 2, 1. Oh. Ooh. You think it's going to be an unfeisty one?
A clean game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got two options here. I've gone.
These two love each other.
I feel like I've gone for the stats-based argument.
Great.
Just about. I think you two have gone with the vibes, and I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Normally, that is definitely the case with me in the show, but this time I've got some stats to back it up.
Okay, so my
glad you
stats.
do.
Unfortunately, my stats are wrong. I mean,
Right.
I got spooked a little bit on this because I'd done the prep and I'd made my choice, and then I watched Liverpool last night. They got 5 bookings just by themselves.
Yeah.
Newcastle chipping in with a couple, so that last night would have covered this for sure. And it being a derby, you are always aware of the fact that it could ignite and explode. You make a good point in that it's the last one at Goodison Park. You know, literally Everton will not go down without a fight. And you know, what could really spoil this is an Ashley Young red card. But they're two of the cleanest teams in the league. I was actually a bit surprised by this. You know, Everton have barely picked up any bookings this season. Like 23, second fewest, half of Chelsea's entire total for the season. Again, quite surprised by that. And Liverpool not exactly the worst defenders either, on 31. Last night didn't do them any favours there, picking up 5. And I looked at the line as well for Michael Oliver, who's in charge. He was at 4.91, 4.92 average yellow bookings per game until last night, and then he moved to literally bang on 5. I'm just going to say that Liverpool might be a little bit too composed to fall into the trap, needing a response from midweek. And this being a big game, of course, yes, it can go feisty, but Liverpool have got bigger ambitions than being sucked into something here at Goodison Park. They've got a title to win. And generally speaking, this season, they've been pretty clean, and I trust them to keep it clean here.
Yeah, I think the enormity of the game plays a part in this, where not only is it the last game at Goodison, which I think will mean that there is going to be an extra bit of spice there, especially from the home fans who'll be desperate to get one over. And what would be like a famous win against the Liverpool side who are 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League. But also just the importance of this game for both teams, regardless of the situation, where Everton, as you know, having got that win in midweek, now have that 5-point buffer between them and the relegation zone, but still need points. And Liverpool, of course, trying to keep the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal at arm's length at the top of the league. Like, there is obviously the bragging rights in Merseyside are there to be fought over as always, but there's also a really important 3 points for both teams too, which I think will play into that. Coupled by the fact that Everton, for all of the kind of naysayers, they're defensively very good, and often in games like this, where especially when you've got a massive favourite in Liverpool, the game can kind of fizzle out a bit. Like last night, for example, Arsenal United, there have been 4 bookings by the time that Arsenal scored their second goal. And as soon as they're 2-0 up, the intensity goes a bit because you're like, well, United's not going to get back into this. So suddenly the bookings don't come. And I think with Everton and Liverpool, I find it hard to believe that even if Liverpool do win it fairly cosily, they're going to rack up a big score and kind of put the game to bed early. Michael Oliver, as you mentioned, he's someone who is prone to often getting his tickets out fairly regularly. But he's, with some experience in playing this market in derby games, there are definitely some referees who change the way that they behave based on games like this. Well, they'll go into derbies and they'll be like, look, I'm going to keep my cards in my pocket because I don't want it to get to unravel and go crazy. And I don't think Michael Oliver is one of those. If you look back to September when he, it's a derby in a different sense, a rivalry more than a derby, but he had the whistle for City Arsenal, gave 8 yellows and a red in that game. He also... fairly recently, Liverpool United last season, 7 yellows and a red in that game. He did Spurs Chelsea last season as well, gave 7 yellows and 2 reds. So in these like heated clashes where there's more than just points at stake, he does seem to be fairly happy to react to that by getting his cards out. They're the stats part that I was talking about.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I think 50 isn't that high, basically, and I'm happy to go over with the added benefit of, if it does hit 50, then it's nothing done.
Yep, I am much the same. I think you have both covered it extensively, so there's not loads to add. Obviously, Michael Oliver does have experience in this fixture before. He let Jordan Pickford get away with that tackle on Virgil van Dijk that put him out for a long while, which arguably could have been a red, and also sent off Richarlison in 2020. He's only given 1 red this season, so maybe he's due another one. You mentioned Ashley Young. I would absolutely love that. 2 yellows, please, Ashley. And we are flying in this market. I'm spending the weekend with my girlfriend's family, who are all Everton fans. So if they're miserable because Everton lose, hopefully I can be the positive one with higher in this market.
Lovely.
That would be some consolation
Yeah.
for them. Don't worry about the derby,
No,
guys.
I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about me. As long as I'm happy.
You can buy the takeaway.
Yeah.
Amazing reasoning. I mean, that really is a vibes reasoning, that one.
That is, there is nothing but vibes.
Right, on to the second game. We're going to be covering 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. Ruben Amorim losing his first game of the season against Arsenal, as we just discussed. Forest down to earth with a bit of a bump. I've got a feeling Forest fans would have gone to the Etihad last night, kind of fancying their team to maybe continue their good start to the season. But Kevin De Bruyne is back and City were improved and they were beaten 3-0. Total goal minutes is what we're looking at here. This is the total minutes, cumulative minutes the goals are scored within the game. 152 is the midpoint with SpreadX. 144 to sell. Dan, I'm going to keep going. Your maths sometimes is absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's bad.
144 to sell, 154 to buy. You put the midpoint as 152. Anything to say?
It's wrong. It's wrong.
149 is the midpoint.
I mean, well, we'll see what I put up.
Are you going to change off that 3
No,
minutes?
but it could be even better for me.
149 is the midpoint. Are we going higher or lower? 3, 2, 1.
It is even better for me at 149.
Where's
This is low, right?
Yeah.
You two, well, clearly not very convinced.
Not
And
low
that is because these two teams have not scored very many goals this season, right?
Well done, mate. Perfect. Sam?
Dude, this is coming in higher. United need to bounce back from a relatively poor performance against Arsenal last night. It was Amorim's first defeat. I think it was his first league defeat in like 34 games or something ridiculous. So he's not used to it, and he is going to be demanding a big response. Both sides are massively underperforming their XG. So I'm really hoping this is the game where they don't underperform that and they start to find the back of the net. I really should put a few more stats in here. But I haven't. If you know any good stats sites,
I've got some stats that don't support your point.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah, I'm sure they exist, which is probably why they've been omitted.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, total goal minutes, obviously we're trying to add up the numbers of the goals there. So if you're scoring early, it's not very helpful at all. Man United seem to score quite early nowadays.
Yeah.
So there's your first one. You know, they've opened the scoring in the first handful of seconds, it seems, against Bodo Glimt and Ipswich. And Everton, they waited as long as the 34th minute to make the breakthrough. None of this is particularly helpful when it comes to total goal minutes. The other thing is that not an awful lot seems to happen at the end of Forest games. So I went through and had a look at the goals that are scored in sort of 10-minute segments across Premier League games, and in away Premier League games this season for Forest, there have been 2 goals from the 71st minute onward in the Premier League. That's 7 games that Forest have played away from home, and they've only seen 2 goals, for or against, in those last 20 minutes. So the general pattern of United scoring early and Forest not conceding late leads me to lower.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I watched United last night, and it was obvious against Ipswich as well. Like, Amorim is trying to revolutionise the style of play, and it feels like the way that he is instigating that process is to effectively retain the ball in very, very deep areas and make United pretty compact out of possession and ensure they're playing out from the back, but not be particularly expansive and not trying to get the ball kind of forward early. And in the first half yesterday, they did actually a really good job, which will get lost because of the scoreline, in restricting Arsenal to very, very little in open play. And actually, when you look at it, yeah, we can laud Arsenal's incredible set-piece routines and their proficiency from set pieces, but it was 0-0 in open play, and I wouldn't say that Arsenal were by miles a better team. They missed a couple of opportunities, but realistically, it was just set pieces that got them through it. So I kind of fancy United against a Forest team who, as good as they've been this season, aren't a relentless attacking threat, to see them, well, to not concede too much in the way of chances. And I still think United, from an attacking perspective, when they get the ball into the final third, are still heavily reliant on ball carriers in order to do anything, basically. Like when Ahmad came on yesterday, he was dangerous. Obviously, Garnacho can do that too, but the processes are not there, in my mind, for chance creation right now.
Well, I think also when you're trying to change things like this, you often start really well in games. You have that flurry, and then it does kind of taper off. Like when you're trying to change as much as Amorim is changing, you're never going to get a 90-minute performance to his liking out of Man United. It's not going to happen for months. You might get 30, you might get 45, you might even get 60 by February, but you are not going to get... And the game just dies when that happens. So that's what I fear as well.
Yes, I'm with you. Well, we agree. I think we made a good case for it.
I think so. I'm very regretful right now.
Well, let's get to
make it up.
another goals market. Fulham against Arsenal. West London against North London. Total goals, the market here with SpreadX. 2.9 is the sell price, 3.1 is the buy price, so 3 is the midpoint. So again, higher here, you want 4 or more goals. Lower, you want 2 or fewer. 3 would be a push. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Yes.
I'm not on my own, at least.
It's got a nice pattern going here, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just got really spooked. It like 4 goals. It's a lot to ask.
Yeah. But with the insurance, I mean, insurance both ways.
It does. Yeah, it works both ways, of course. But I'm trying to win the bet here.
Yeah, good.
And look, let's preface this by just saying that Fulham are playing on Thursday night, so tonight. We're recording this before that, and who knows what might happen in that case. Fulham might score 10. And that might make you think they'll score 10 more, or it might make you think they've used up all their goals and they'll score 0. We just don't know. But Arsenal...
The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, isn't it?
Probably somewhere in the middle, correct. Well done. Arsenal, since Martin Odegaard has returned, have been obviously a lot better across the board. Yeah. So there's one reason to think that this might come through. You know, in their last 5 games, they've scored 3, 5 and 5, in addition to 1 and 2. So that's not bad at all. And Fulham are constantly in a situation where I think they're kind of like a minimum 2 goals team, and then let's see what else you can add to the table. You have to go back quite far, I think back to September, to find a game where Fulham were involved in. They didn't have at least 2 goals, and 4 of the last 7, so not including the Thursday night, have had 3. So we're right on the cusp here, but there's something about the fixture crunch, there's something about the game after game after game that can often, I think, make these things very messy. There's something about that London rivalry. I know people hate hearing that, and I almost hate the fact that I said it, but like Arsenal-Fulham, it gets quite gritty. You've got the Emil Smith-Rowe, Bernd Leno ex-player factor. In my mind's eye, I can just see it all. Yeah, Reece Nelson won't be able to play, he's on loan, but there's loads of presences either way. And in my mind's eye, I just think this one gets very niggly, very bitty, and comes in under the line.
My main reason for this, because as I said yesterday, I didn't, Arsenal are clearly back, whatever back means, and I expect that they will again cause Fulham ridiculous problems from set pieces because they seem to have just solved how to do corners. Like the delivery from Declan Rice is like, he's gone from suddenly being a player that I don't really associate with set pieces, like the best corner taker I've ever seen in my whole life. It's remarkable. But
And it's the same corner every time.
it's absolutely incredible. But I'm being there, I've been like, why do we? Anyway, I was going to talk about England being like terrible at set pieces in the summer. It's just quite annoying.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Declan under Thomas Tuchel can be like, this is what we do, guys. And Saka the other side as well. Fulham, in every single Fulham home game this season, both teams have scored. So that is a big, away from home, it's a bit of a different story. But at home, you can normally rely on Fulham for some goals, albeit the highest placed team they've played in the league this season so far were Villa. So they're yet to play City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. This is the first time they'll host any of those. But again, from a defensive standpoint, let's not forget that they conceded 4 goals against Wolves fairly recently, albeit with 10 men on the pitch late on. They struggle to keep clean sheets, and therefore I find it very difficult to think that they'll keep a clean sheet here, albeit we know they carry an attacking threat, and as you say, some of their key attacking players will come into this absolutely feeling like they've got a point to prove, and Emil Smith-Rowe being one of those. So that...
Yeah, I gave some good evidence in your favour, didn't I?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot about that. So with 3 being a push, basically you're saying what's more likely, 2 or fewer or 4 or more, and I'm going 4 or more. Dan.
Yeah.
And also Gabriel being out as well means that Arsenal from an defence perspective maybe a bit weaker.
Yep. Much the same, just to kind of carry on from your clean sheet point of view.
Thank you, mate.
They've only kept 2 clean sheets. This is Fulham. I'm talking about all season. But I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to anyone listening that we think Arsenal are going to score, because Arsenal are fantastic at the moment, as you mentioned, particularly since Odegaard's been back. The set-piece stuff has been covered a ridiculous amount of times in the last sort of 12 hours. But there have been 3 or more goals in 5 of the last 6 between these two, so I'm expecting it to continue. I think Arsenal score 3. So if Fulham can come to the party, we're laughing. Or if Arsenal can score more than 3, also laughing.
I'm not laughing.
You're not laughing.
You 2 are laughing.
We are.
We often do. Right, talking about all London rivalries. I think this one we can absolutely call a rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
Tottenham hosting Chelsea. Chelsea having a fantastic start to the season under Enzo Maresca. Seems to kind of be going slightly under the radar, maybe.
Not anymore. They've just been called title challenges.
Well, to Enzo, and he was like, no, we're not.
Yeah, but people keep asking it, so now it's no longer under the radar.
Fair enough. Although I think with the odds still suggest that they're not really title challenges.
Because they're probably not.
Are they not? I mean, this is coming from the guy that said the Brighton were last season, so you've got to be careful what you say.
Yeah.
You're looking at oddschecker now. Chelsea best price 14 to 1. So
So not really.
in with a chance, I would say. Right. So where were we? Yes, Spurs hosting Chelsea. Title challengers Chelsea against probably not title challengers Tottenham. Chelsea favourites for this.
Yeah.
At the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. As Sam mentioned, we're recording this on Thursday morning. Spurs travel to the south coast tonight to Bournemouth in what should be a pretty tasty affair. So we don't know what's happened there. You would assume that if Tottenham win that game 17-0, they might become favourites. But right now, Chelsea are favourites. So 0.1.
10-0 and a 17-0.
Yeah.
Thursday night football's going to be really good.
Well, I think we got a bit carried away from last night.
Yeah.
I think it's the most goals scored in a day.
I mean, it looked a lot like that famous Boxing Day fixture, didn't it, when the scores came up?
Yeah. But this is the longest I've ever taken to introduce one market. I think 0.1 is the midpoint in the supremacy. This is Chelsea favourites over Tottenham. So higher is a Chelsea win. Lower is a draw or a Spurs win. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
I'm on my own. This is mad.
It's crazy. It's really hard.
I'm really surprised that you guys have both gone for this. Because let's just play the maths. Where if you take Chelsea's win price to win this game, which I'm slowly finding as I talk really slowly, they are best price on oddschecker 7-5 to win this game. So that in itself gives them a sub 50% chance of winning the game. Mm-hmm. So by going higher, you guys are effectively saying that is very wrong and they should be odds on to win. And I'm happy enough to invest my faith in the market and know that the market isn't wrong. Chelsea are obviously very good, and there's no denying how strong they are. It'll also massively help them that they've got an extra day's rest, and that they played against 10 men for 70 minutes on Wednesday night. But I think Spurs at home, and home advantage is still very, very big. The Spurs at home this season have been really strong. Their 2 defeats came against Arsenal, which they lost 1-0, and obviously that Ipswich game, which was a bit of an anomaly. But apart from that, they put 4 past Villa, beating them by 3 clear goals. They put 4 past West Ham, beating them by 3 clear goals. 4 past Everton, beating them 4-0. They're a team that, when they get going at home, are really, really strong. And so having the draw on side for me, just got to play the numbers as I know best, and say that the draw or Spurs is the likelier outcome. Sam?
Yeah, so you kind of covered a bit of my ground there as well, because there were 3 things that drew me to Chelsea here, despite the fact that you've got a home double chance against Spurs, which you're right, it does feel a bit, well, it feels very risky and it feels very bold. The extra day of rest I think is kind of important.
Yeah.
You buy into this however you like, but even Arne Slot was stood there last night talking about how Newcastle had an extra day than Liverpool, and I really do think that makes a difference around this time, especially for teams that are playing every 3.5 days on average, because they're both involved in Europe. Of course, Chelsea have it's like a fake European schedule, isn't it? Because they have a B team worth 400 million that go and take care of that game. And it was that team largely that went and played against Southampton. So a lot of those players, like Nicholas Jackson, just took the week off, which is really, really important here. We don't know exactly what Spurs are going to look like defensively, according to injuries. Romero might be back. Van der Ven's not going to be there. Vicario's not going to be there. Bentancur is suspended. Feels like they're getting pinched in a specific area quite hard.
Yeah.
And underlining all of it, of course, is Chelsea have looked brilliant. And if you don't agree with that, then absolutely go with George. But if, like me, you're looking at Chelsea right now and thinking, geez, you've got a lot of strings to your bow. How many different goal scorers have you got on like 3 different ones against Villa, 5 different ones against Southampton? Like, what is going on here? Like, who could stop you? Banged up Tottenham with 1 fewer day's rest is probably not the answer to me. So that's where I went.
Dan?
That's good.
Okay.
Cool.
That was very, very, very good.
Easiest job in football, this guy.
He really
I'm going to have to get you on instead of me going forward, I think, because it's blowing me out of the water.
That's fine.
You weren't going to say it,
Yeah, we're all thinking it. On top of that, Chelsea won both of these fixtures last year, including a 4-1 thumping.
Was that the Van der Ven hamstring 9-man fiasco?
That's not what I've written
Great
down.
fun,
We don't need to talk about that. We
playing
don't
the
need to
highest
talk
line
about
with
that.
2 defenders. That was one of my favourite games.
Unreal.
Yeah, that was when Jackson scored the hat-trick, right?
Offside hat-trick and then the onside hat-trick. Yeah.
Yeah. But aside from that, Chelsea's recent form is pretty strong against Tottenham. They've only been defeated once in the last 6. I think Spurs remain a little bit all over the place. You've got the defeats to Galatasaray and Ipswich. Then they go and beat City 4-0 and then draw to Roma and Fulham. Like, they can't... There's no sort of like stability there in my eyes. And I think, okay, I was actually a little bit surprised that Chelsea were the favourites, even though it's very, very slight. But I have to look at this thinking, I think Chelsea score. I actually think Chelsea score twice. So if you keep that in mind, the fact that they're favourites is fine. It doesn't mean anything. And the reason I think they score more than twice is because they've done that in 50% of their away games. And as Sam said, they're coming up against a defence that is makeshift at best. And I think they could easily get 2 or more against Tottenham. So I'm sticking with Chelsea. I think this should be a great game, though, for everyone involved. The goals cubed market, you know way more about this market than me, but it's almost 100.
Yeah.
Which is very high.
Yeah, I wouldn't be playing that.
No, absolutely not. I was actually going to go for that market here, which is why I've made this comment. But that was
That's high.
Obscenely high.
Yes, correct. But, things can get out of control sometimes.
They can do.
It's like I was looking at the goals market tonight for Bournemouth against Tottenham at 92 to buy. You're like, it can be 4 goals there and you lose 35 points.
Yeah.
Not up for it. Is that right? 32 points. But, you can sell.
You could sell.
And now, right, so we're recording this just before 11 o'clock on Thursday. And currently, as things stand, Lopetegui is still West Ham manager. Gary O'Neill is still Wolves manager.
Yeah.
Whether that's still the case when this game kicks off, we do not know. If it is, I've never known a game that is more apt for the El Sacco moniker of all time.
Yeah.
Where whoever loses this game, 100% the manager gets sacked. Possibly even, given the quick turnaround from midweek, I reckon if there's a draw here, then both managers could get sacked off the back of it, which is quite fun. Looking at not for them, although you get paid.
Lucrative.
You get paid.
I think they both
game.
look very tired.
Yes.
You see the way Lopetegui is scratching his head. If he didn't have any hair, he'd look like Pep did after that final game.
Yeah. I also, from what I've heard, I think Gary O'Neill might still live east of London, in which case that commute is wild.
Tough one.
So yeah, maybe he'll be the next West Ham manager. Perfect. Just swap. I know. I don't think Wolves will be very happy with that. Looking at the oddschecker market here for the next manager sacked, it's incredible because Lopetegui's 4-6, Gary Neal's 11-10. But normally in this market, it's like we can't really tell because it's not on the horizon. This is like that because either one could just go like any second.
In from 8-1 as well, Gary O'Neill. I think it was 8-1 yesterday or the day before.
Wow.
Which, yeah.
Well, he stood there last night and took all the blame and looked incredibly resigned.
Yeah.
So that probably plays into it. He looked like a man who thought he was going to be sacked soon.
Yes.
And Lopetegui apparently he's survived by a very minority board vote. You know, with that's where we are.
Yeah.
What do you think of Russell Martin saying they're 8-1?
Um,
How far away from the sack do you think Russ is?
Yeah, he's been further away from the sack than anyone could possibly believe all season, mostly because the faith in him from the board has been really, really strong. But you are getting towards a decision point, I would imagine, right? You can't really be much more adrift than they are right now.
It's just weird how it's gone kind of the way I thought it would go, but for like completely the opposite reasons, where I thought they would just get picked off really easily, whereas they were often in games, obviously not last night, but just...
That was the first shellacking they've taken.
They find a way just to really shoot themselves in the foot on like an unbelievably consistent basis.
9 errors leading to goals now.
Unbelievable. Anyway, we digress again. What a show this is. We're looking at total goals in possibly El Sacico. 3.15 is the midpoint here. 3.05 to sell, 3.25 to buy. So higher again, like before, 4 or more. But this time, 3 would be a loser rather than a push. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Rule agreed.
Yeah.
Sam, given you are our guest, you can have first
this
round.
total goals line could be 6.1 and I'd take the high. Neither of these teams can defend. Both of these teams can actually attack, and both of these teams and managers are absolutely desperate. So a lovely cocktail to go higher on, I think, here. West Ham have conceded, 8 in 2 games? Watched them against Leicester. Let's be honest, they should have scored at least 3 themselves.
Yeah, they were good.
They were actually, they weren't good defensively, but they were better than Leicester. I would venture in that game, and it's.
I really liked some of the takes afterwards being like, Ruud van Nistelrooy has already done more at Leicester than Lopetegui, and I was like, lads, just look at the game.
Yeah, that wasn't a good presentation actually. And funnily enough, West Ham lost 3-1. According to the expected goals, they won just over 3 to just over 1.
Yeah.
So the figures like body swapped. It was fantastic. But look. In that game alone, even with the XG of 3, they had a goal ruled out for the tiniest little tap on the goalkeeper. It felt to me like a team that, they're up against it, they're contriving to lose because they're under pressure and it just didn't go for them. And also, Wolves kind of feel like that too, but you look at them both and you say, wow, look at the attacking talent you have to call upon, both of you. Jared Bowen, Matheus Cunha. Against feeble defences, these 2 players should feast. And then one more stat to kind of round it off as well. West Ham and Wolves are tied for the most goals seen in the opening 10 minutes of games this season. Actually, no, I have to update that from last night. West Ham have seen 9 and Wolves have seen 10, so Wolves are the new leaders. 9 goals in the opening 10 minutes, 4 and against for West Ham, 10 for Wolves in games this season.
Wow.
So if the goal scoring starts early, presumably it just never stops, right? Because they're both fragile as hell.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And also there's just, at some point, if it is, if one team goes clear, it just feels like it'll descend into chaos because, the reaction from the management will be...
Send on attackers.
Yeah. I've got to save it here.
Yeah.
Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of focusing more on the fact that they're both very poor defensively. Wolves have obviously conceded at least 6 more goals than any other team in the Premier League, which is pretty gross. And West Ham are right up there as well with 27 conceded. They're 4th highest for shots conceded. So, all of the stats here really are screaming goals to me. Also, Wolves, as you said, they can attack too. They look very decent on the counter, and only Spurs have scored more goals on the counter-attack than Wolves this season, which feels wild considering their league position and everything else.
That's Matheus Cunha for you.
That is Matheus.
That stat is actually only Spurs have scored more goals on the counter than one man.
Yeah, but that's fine. As long as Cunha plays it, then I'm absolutely fine with that. Interesting, none of the last 6 between these two have gone above this line, but then you factor in the manager stuff, and I just think, roll the dice.
Yeah, I'm going to just segue straight from this game into my nap, because my nap is also goals cubed in this game at 63
nice.
to buy. So I'm going higher, and I'm also saying
63.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like that.
Ooh.
Just under 64.
So
That's incredible.
So if there are 4 goals, I make a point profit. That's what I want. Yeah, for all the reasons you guys mentioned, it feels like this is a game that could unravel very, very quickly. We've seen both teams involved in crazy games recently, even. Like there was a point, I think, at half-time in Arsenal-West Ham where this line would have been about 800 to buy, obviously, when it was there 7 goals in the first half, no goals in the second half. But with Wolves as well, we've seen a 4-0, a 4-2, a 4-1 in their last 3 games. We had a 5-3 earlier in the season, a 6-2. They're just the team to go for this market. And I think because it's West Ham and there's like a historical caginess about them, and because Lopetegui is maybe a manager you don't expect to be particularly involved in high-scoring games, they're kind of baked in to be an unders team. But it's just not the case. Like 3-1 again against Leicester, where they created loads, 5-2 against Arsenal, had a 4-1 already this season, a defeat, a 4-1 win. Enough games in there of 5, 6, 7 goals to make this worthwhile. So I am definitely going over, and I'm definitely a goals cubed buyer in West Ham against Wolverhampton Wanderers. That's my best bet. But who cares about my nap?
True.
Because you are the nap king.
I am. And you want to talk about crazy games?
No.
I present to you Tottenham versus Chelsea again. I am going for...
Like he presented that to you.
Yeah. I am going for a sell of Chelsea first goal against Tottenham at 44.5.
Because they're going to score at least 2, you said earlier.
Yeah, maybe not maybe not in the first half, but in the game they will.
Right.
Hopefully at least one of them is in the first half, though, because then I'll be a winner here. On average, Chelsea are finding the back of the net in the 33rd minute in their away games this season, which is obviously nicely inside my line. Spurs are averaging time of conceding at home, 35th minute. Again, nicely inside. Last 3 for Chelsea, 7th minute against Southampton, 7th minute against Villa, 15th minute for Leicester. All 3 of them huge winners. I think there's going to be loads of goals here. So even if Tottenham get one first, still the rest of the first half for Chelsea to level it up. I think this comes in easy. I'm actually very, very punchy on this. And obviously I've been pretty strong at my naps.
Yeah, unsustainable.
I think this is my strongest.
Unsustainable.
We'll find out.
Okay. As Sam and I are both fathers, and we know that a good run of naps always comes to an end.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Sam, what's your best bet?
I was not told to have a best bet.
That's fine. Let's just move on.
I've done a good job at this, haven't I, of preparing this week?
I think it was on the email, wasn't it? A tip of the week from everyone.
Oh crap! Sorry, I missed it.
Have to put explicit on the tag here. Right. Bad luck. Sam won't be invited back. That brings this week's episode of Higher or Lower to a close. If you haven't got an account with Spreadex or Sporty Index, you can find the link for a new customer offer in the show description. T's and C's do apply. And do remember that losses can exceed your initial deposit. Thank you very much to Dan. Thank you to Sam. Check out Spreadex and Sporty Index for all of your spread betting needs. And oddschecker for your fixed odds bets. WhoScored.com have you covered for your stats-based research. Enjoy the weekend's football. We'll be back again next week. Hopefully Jack is back and can take Dan's place. But in the meantime, enjoy the football and please ensure that you're gambling responsibly.